Going to be joined in just a minute by the general manager, Justin Wynn. And got a lot to talk about today. Of course, the national championship college football game is coming up on Monday between Ohio State and Alabama. That is if Ohio State doesn't run away and hide, because they're saying that their starting quarterback, Justin Fields, has some broken ribs or whatever. Hey, that's not how the real world works. You got to go with what you got. And scheduled for Monday. But look here, we've got Jimmy Hodge on with us, national college football contributor up in Chicago. Also, Jake Crane down in Tupelo, host of the J-Boy podcast, #1 in the country after 7 months. And Jake, how many hits and invites and all have you had on there so far? How many million is it?
Man, we're almost at 1.5 million views. Within about 8.5 months, we've doubled up our views in the last 3 months, and on pace for that this month. It's very blessed that timing's a lot of it, and we have a great audience and everybody that tunes in. I think obviously us leaving politics out of it and actually talking about the fundamentals and stuff that really goes on in the game of football, and obviously baseball and basketball has something to do with it. But just very blessed and love doing it. Love coming on here and talking about what we all.
Hey, the truth is, we're a sports radio show. We talk about sports and we positive solutions, and we find excuses to win. That's always been our motto.
That's right.
And let me say this. We got a great show. We got Wes Moore from ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock's going to join us, talk about the Hogs football, recruiting. Musselman, the basketball coach, you knew he was going to be a winner. But Sonny Smith last year said he was the most underrated coach out there. It's in his blood. Arkansas top 5 recruiting class. It's already translating on the hardwood. We've also got Jason Caldwell inside the Auburn Tigers. Latest on the Auburn coaching situation. Of course, obviously, Brian Harson's the head coach. But he's gone in there with a scorched earth policy, Jake and Jimmy, gotten rid of a lot of people and making some changes, bringing in some new coaches. At 4 o'clock, Rodney Orr, Tider Insider, is going to be on with us to talk about the scheduled Alabama-Ohio State game. 4:30, Mark Slaybaugh, ESPN.com, is going to be on talking about, of course, the Monday night matchup, Ohio State-Bama, Georgia, SEC, National College Football, author of 13 books. What's really cool about Mark Slaybaugh, and he'll talk about it, is writing a series of books about the Robertson family, the Duck Dynasty people, and Uncle Si. I mean, that is worthy of a mini series. But hey, look, before we get going into this, I want to get Justin Wynn on. Of course, the general manager, Red River Ford Toyota. They bought the dealership here October 5th in Wynn, Arkansas. John Dobbs Jr. from Memphis. The Dobbs family have been in the car and truck business a long time. He is a part of the Red River Auto Group ownership team. Love to have his friends and relationships come over here. Easy to get to, about 45 minutes from Memphis. We're over here right now on I-40. Get off at the Forest City exit. Go north about 11 miles. Can't miss it. Red River Ford Toyota, open every day but Sunday. They'll be here till 6 or 7 till the last sale is done. And another thing to remember, if you're going back and forth to Heber Springs, right there on 64, you want to be getting off about a half a mile south of 64 below the Walmart. You can't miss it. Red River Ford Toyota. Justin, look, we just got through with Christmas, got through with New Year's, but you know what? I'm looking out here at your car lot. It's getting bigger. You're getting more inventory, and there's a lot to see when you're out here. Tell folks about the dealership, Red River Ford Toyota, because I know you're driving that Toyota Tundra I'm looking at, but you got a lot to offer and a great sales team here.
Yeah, Rob, we sure do. We're real excited to be here and win. We've done some pretty big things already. You just mentioned that the lot's been expanded. It's coming together quite well. Inventory is getting deep out here. So what's that old saying? Stack them deep and sell them cheap. Yep. That's what we're going to try to do here. And so we want everybody's business. We want to give everybody a great deal on a new Ford or Toyota. I've got the new 2021 model F-150s in. If you hadn't seen these yet, they're an all-new truck. Great redesign. Of course, legendary Ford power and reliability. And then, of course, that Toyota line is just phenomenal. I'm actually looking at doing something for my daughter, maybe getting her new Camry tomorrow or the next day. So,
well, I'm looking out here at that Toyota Tundra that you drive, and I drive an F-150 myself. And it's black, but right now it's a beautiful Mississippi Delta mud color. But I don't get stuck in it, man. I'm batting 1,000. I absolutely love it. We got a bunch of us that hunt over at the Cherry Farm in Parkin. It's deer season, it's duck season, but the season that's always in is finding good affordable cars, trucks, and SUVs. Rusty Howard, your sales manager, is fantastic, man. When you walk in, you can just feel it. It's like electricity coming out of unleashed from Hoover Dam. Talk about what the process is like when you come over here to look at a vehicle.
Well, it's extremely simple. You just come out, pick something out. We'll let you drive it. We'll let you drive every vehicle in this lot if you'd like to. We make it as easy as it possibly be. And Rusty's, I had him come up with some deals for our advertising earlier. And man, he came up with some amazing things. You're talking a new Tacoma for $299 a month, a new Camry for $285 a month, up to 12 grand off, and F-150, 13 grand off a new Expedition. I mean, he came up with some things that made my eyes pop when I actually looked at them, and I thought about not okaying them, but we got to move these things out of here. So I said, okay, run with it and we'll see what happens.
When you talk about the process, and again, we're broadcasting live today on the Friday afternoon edition of Sidelines.live from Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas. Again, it's about 18 minutes. We're over in Wynne more and more. You get over here on the other side of Crowley's Ridge or Crowley's Ridge, whatever you want to call it. It's a great place. Wynne, the city with a smile. The cool thing about it when you get here, y'all got an inventory of over 700 used cars, trucks, and SUVs as well. So if a person has a desired vehicle, whether it's new or used, and they don't see it on your website, what's the next step?
It's just simply letting us know what you're looking for, and then we'll put our feelers out and see what we can do as far as finding it for you. We have lots of different lines as far as what the auto group offers, and so we should be able to get you pretty well what you're looking for and make sure you get a great deal on it.
And people worry sometimes, hey, I'm going to go get a new car or truck. I'm going to be, hot box and, put in a room like under interrogation for half a day to get it done. You can actually start the process on your website, redriverfordtoyota.com. It's on our website if you go there to sidelines.live. But a lot of it you can get done when you get here, and y'all will already have everything printed out.
You can do a lot of it. Start online. I tell you, you talk about that hot box. That's big city dealer stuff, man. We want it real simple, laid back, easy. We want you to feel good about your purchase. We want you to feel good about the dealership and feel good about us. Ultimately, that'll come back to us on the backside of it, and we'll be able to keep your business for a long, long time.
Hey, if you could, I know once you buy a car, truck, or SUV, and I've had them all. Like I say, I drive an F-150. I love it. Service department, that is so big. You've got any kind of problem, oil change, a lot of the routine maintenance, we know about that, but you got the big problems. If you could, we're going to be on 3 to 5 Central, 4 to 6 Eastern, east of the Chattahoochee and the Caney Fork. What about the service department? Could you bring the head of the service department or someone out here to talk to people about it? Because I think a lot of people get anxiety when they think about taking their car or truck in.
Yeah, I'd love to get one of my service guys out here. And I tell you, you've walked through my service department. I mean, it is amazing back there. I've got a whole side dedicated for Ford. I've got a whole side dedicated for Toyota. And I've got another side dedicated for your quick lubes, your oil changes, your tire rotations, just your normal general maintenance stuff. But I've got a great service department. They've done a great job. Really highly respected in the community. And I think you'll see why once you give them a shot back there.
Yeah, and again, it's easy to get over here, about 45 minutes from Memphis. If you're going to Little Rock, remember, get off the Forest City exit, go north about 11 miles, and they're here. They'll be here tonight till 6:30 or 7. Back in the morning at 8:30, 9 o'clock. There's people here early, I promise you. When you come in, whether you're a Razorback or Red Wolf, Memphis Tiger, it doesn't matter. SEC, AAC, Sunbelt, these people are winners. That's why they're in Wynne. That is Red River Ford Toyota. Justin Wynn, the general manager, has been with us. And remember, if you're from Memphis to Mid-South, you know the Dobbs name. John Dobbs Jr. is part of the Red River Auto Group ownership team, going back and forth to Heber Springs, Perkins, Don Johnson, all my friends that go back and forth to the lake. Check these people out. It is a great move, and we'll be with you for 2 hours broadcasting live. We're in the war room, in the strategy room right now. I'm looking for Coach to get here at the end of the table and start talking strategy. But Justin, thanks so much for being with us, and we'll look forward to having you bring people out several times during the show because we want to promote Red River Ford Toyota. Okay. Hey, Jimmy, Jake, football season, got the big championship game on tap for Monday night, and I think everybody's asking, hey, what's going on with Ohio State? And it's the craziest thing that I think any of us have ever seen. Justin Fields and Ohio State. Really, I mean, you've got some broken ribs. He needs more time to heal up. Just like when people were saying no coaches would be fired in the year of the virus. And I kept saying, you're out of your mind. If they got to be fired, they got to be fired. And Jake did personally go over to the Auburn football complex and drag Gus Malzahn out, kicking and screaming, and get rid of him. Jake, thank you. And America thanks you. But I'll start with you first, Jimmy. What's going on up there? You're in Chicago, Big Ten country. Ohio State's a good team, no doubt about it. But this narrative of they want more time or it may not be played is stupid, silly, and ridiculous. Jimmy, go ahead.
Well, to be truthful, I haven't heard a whole lot about it except just what I've read. I mean, because, in a major market, like Chicago, I mean, everything's pro sports. The Bears are in the playoffs, and college athletics is just kind of on the back burner unless Notre Dame's having a good year, which they obviously did. But now that they're out, you're hearing about how Kelly, can't win the big game and so forth. But in my opinion, and I know you're asking me about Ohio State, but since I did mention Notre Dame and that's who Alabama eliminated, I think you just got to recognize that, Kelly's done an outstanding job at Notre Dame. It's a lot harder job than people think. They have academic entrance requirements that are stiffer than a lot of the other heavyweight programs. So they can't just, offer to anybody. But moving on to Ohio State, the only thing I have, just read up to this point is that they're, communicating the party line and that you've even heard it from Fields that he thinks he's ready to go on Monday, and Gene Smith said the same thing, and Ryan Day said the same thing. So I guess I don't know what the timeline is now since, it's a Monday game. Normally, I guess the virus tests are taken normally the day before the game. So you guys probably know better than me if they're going to know for absolutely sure, maybe by Sunday night or if it's Monday morning, or I'm not sure where it is, but they sound like, they want to play, but of course, saying something and then actually following through on it are two different things.
Yeah, and I don't want to be coming down hard on Ohio State because I respect, if it wasn't for Ohio State and Iowa and Nebraska raising so much cane, the Big Ten probably wouldn't have played football because that commissioner, Kevin Warren, who came from the NFL, he's just a slob, okay? He didn't want to play football. He was looking for the easy way out. And they're holier than thou, sanctimonious people up there like Christine Brennan. Oh, this is the darkest day in Big Ten history and all that. Throw those people out the window into the ditch. They're no good. And maybe this is just a narrative that's being, good gosh, we know there's so much social media out there. But Jake Crane, what do you think about this matchup? Because we're going to be with Wes Moore calling in just a minute from ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock talking about the Razorbacks. But real quick, your thoughts. Hey, I like you not here. I can hear you. I can hear you. No.
Well, I can hear on mine. Why can't you hear on mine?
I can hear you. Nothing. Jake,
Can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me?
yeah, Jake. But
All right. Yeah. Sorry. I don't know why it wasn't coming through. No, I was
must
saying,
be a Blue Jay on the line.
Yeah, I don't know. But no, I think it'll be a good game early. What I was saying was I think Ohio State put a lot on tape last week, meaning that they went to a lot of plays that you typically go to when you need them during the course of a year. And I think they threw all of them into one game. You look at the throwback to the tight end. They did some things in the run game that they haven't done, some adjustments that are now on tape that they haven't made, that I'm sure Alabama's going to work on. But I do think if you look from a personnel standpoint, Ohio State can match up with them up front, which always gives you a chance. but I don't think they're going to be able to score as many points as they did against Clemson. I just don't see it. I like Alabama by a touchdown here, but I do think it'll be a pretty good game for at least 3 quarters.
Yeah, let's face it. Ohio State's built like any of the superpower SEC teams are. So you're going to have to play a full 60 against them. Of course, they did beat Alabama back in 2014. Of course, none of those guys are on this same team. Was it Jimmy or Jake made a great point? One of y'all last week that was brilliant.
Probably Jimmy then.
Look, it was about Cordell Jones, the third-team quarterback for Ohio State, who was the substitute in the starter and everybody thought Oregon would beat Ohio State. And I kept saying, look, just like Nebraska, Florida back in 95, you think that Oregon has all this speed. They do. But Ohio State has speed, but they have power in their front seven and on their offensive line. The games always are won or lost at that level on the line of scrimmage. It's just how that stuff works. And anyone that doesn't think that is just they're missing the boat. But the bottom line is if you look at Ohio State and you look at the rest of the Big Ten, they are light years ahead. But a program that's really building a culture and doing a heck of a job is Indiana. And of course, Ole Miss, beat them. They were number 7 in the country. And a lot of people probably didn't think that was going to happen. But again, that's why I think your quarterback, is so important. And what Lane Kiffin did with Matt Corral this year at Ole Miss has been amazing. But Ohio State only played 6 games. And I think, guys, did they have 2 or 3 games canceled? That's not their fault. Okay. But I think Alabama's going to win. I think they'll win. They'll pull away late. It might be a lot like that Texas game back in 2009. That was a 27-24 game, Jimmy, with 5:43 left in the game, and Alabama ended up winning by about 14 points. But just a lot of good football, coming our way. And I love this time of year. I think it's hard to beat. We're transitioning college football. We've got recruiting, college basketball, all this stuff happening. What's amazing is we're going to finish college football, the national championship game, Monday night, January 11th. And I thought we would go late into January, maybe early February. It's amazing when the discipline of all these coaches and managers and equipment operations directors and all, what can happen when everybody's pulling in the same direction, isn't it, Jimmy?
Yeah, but it still might be late January. We won't know until they make it Monday night. But I will say this: if it is delayed by a week, that means that Waddle will probably play for sure.
Well,
and give another weapon for Ohio State's defense to be concerned about. But with all that being said, I honestly don't know how Fields is going to be 100%. I mean, you could tell he had breathing problems, and I think there's got to be some kind of injury to the ribs, and obviously they're doing everything they can to make sure he's ready, but you just never know what's going to happen, after a couple of hits. So that's definitely a huge question mark. Whereas, Alabama, except for the Landon Dickerson, injury, he obviously can't go. Alabama is going to pretty much have everybody on both sides of the ball. And I say full strength besides Dickerson because Alabama's played, I think 8 games now without Waddle. So they have made the adjustment. But if they get him, then it's just available. It's frosting on the cake. But I think Bama's just got too many weapons offensively for Ohio State's defense to deal with. And one thing that was kind of shocking for me to watch last week, even though Clemson pretty much was dominated by Ohio State, Shaun Wade at that corner, he was really vulnerable. And they've got some issues to work out with him because he was definitely a weak spot there. And I know Ohio State has tried to play mostly cover 3, but I think with 10 days they're going to try to mix some stuff in. But just the way he played at that corner, I don't even know if they can take a chance of playing any man at all or cover one. So it's going to be a real interesting matchup. But I do think that this Ohio State defensive front was really impressive against Clemson. So the Alabama, offensive line's they're going to need to be ready to play. But and then the Alabama defensive front, I mean, they're going to have to be ready to play also. I mean, the line of scrimmage with two teams of this caliber, and you're playing for a national championship, it's always going to be important. So, we're down to 3 days away, hopefully only 3 days away, and we're going to find out. But I haven't seen many prominent prognosticators picking Ohio State. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Hey, look, we're joined now by Wes Moore, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock. And Wes, again, thanks for taking time out of your Friday afternoon. I know you do a daily show in Little Rock all over the state of Arkansas covering the Razorbacks. And welcome aboard. Jake Crane, host of the J-Boy podcast, is on with us. And, of course, Jimmy Hodge up in Tupelo. And, hey, Hogs, look, let's talk a little about their football season, the way it ended up. We've been off for Christmas and New Year's, and then recruiting, and then hey, Eric Musselman, Hog basketball. Razorback fans have got a lot of optimism, a lot of pride, and Wes Moore, you're going to tell everybody what's going on.
Well, I'll tell you, it's been a crazy week, even though they didn't get to play a football game, and that was very disappointing because Arkansas wanted to be down in Houston in that Texas Bowl. How excited TCU was playing in that game anyway. But I can tell you from the Arkansas standpoint, they were really hoping to get back on the playing field one more time and take on TCU and really finish the season with a good taste in their mouth after losing and finishing the year on a 4-game losing streak, including losing to Alabama in that last game of the year. But since then, they've had their wide receiver coach, Justin Stepp, go to South Carolina. He's going back home to South Carolina as their wide receiver coach. And, I think a lot of people understand that and why he's leaving, but they hate to see him go because he was such a good recruiter for Arkansas and did a great job of recruiting some wide receivers this year that already signed. So that's the good news. But I feel like they did a good job in getting Coach Guyton from Colorado State. He worked with Coach Briles at Houston. So I think they're going to be happy with this hire. And then, of course, you had Texas and LSU flirting with Coach Odom, the defensive coordinator, and Arkansas was able to get him to stay. So I think they're pretty excited about what's happened the last week or so with their assistant coaches.
Well, yeah, the Razorbacks, when you take a look at what they're doing, it's amazing. Barry Odom, again, a lot of people like him. They like what he's doing. Keeping that staff together, you guys are going to get other opportunities. I don't know how soon Barry Odom wants to go back and be a head coach. He had 4 years at Missouri, didn't go as well as he had hoped for, but he's certainly one of the better defensive minds around. Jake Crane, hey, like I say, Wes Moore, ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock, covers the Razorbacks like Cotton covers Dixie. Jake, come on in with a question.
No, I mean, I just my biggest thing from watching Arkansas, and I'm having Coach Pittman on the show here soon, so excited about that. But my question, I guess I would put to you, Wes, just from an Arkansas standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, do you think there's anybody in the portal that Arkansas is looking at? I know they just got the Crawford kid that was a big get, the offensive lineman. I'm trying to remember where he was from. But is there anybody in the portal that's kind of standing out that Arkansas has contacted outside of him yet?
No, there hasn't been any word filtering out, but I'll tell you this, Sam Pittman made it clear when they did not sign a full class in December that I think they had 4 more left. And he said, look, we're going to sign 3 or 4 more, but they may not be high school kids. He made it clear that what they were looking at was on the defensive line. They would like a transfer that could come in and play right away. He said, look, and the offensive line. Well, I think they got their offensive lineman with Tykees Crawford. Now, he was originally committed to Arkansas, had some, we'll say, grade issues, and so a lot of teams backed off of him, and then he made his grades at the last minute and was able to enroll at Charlotte. Had a good year, started 3 of their 6 games, I believe, and he transferred, wanted to come back home, closer to home. Carthage, Texas, East Texas is his home, so Fayetteville. It makes it very possible for his mom to come and watch him play. So he was very excited to come back to Arkansas. And he said that, that's where his home always has been. That's where his heart was always. He wanted to be a Razorback. Now he's a Razorback. But I would think the portal, they're looking at defensive linemen. That's where they're going to need some help there. Maybe a linebacker, but most likely defensive line. And somebody that can come in and play right away. Not so much a project. They want a guy with maybe some experience that has played somewhere and that can come in and be a starter, at the very least a backup.
Yeah, look, Razorback fans, the whole fan base, this state is, like I say, we're at Red River Ford Toyota right now in Wynn, Arkansas. With Justin Wynn was just on with us, Wes, and you know him, and you know the Red River Auto Group. That it's just unbelievable how dialed in these people are. And I thought preseason, I really did think they could win 4 or 5 games. And that's when they went to that 10-game conference schedule. Razorbacks won 3. They had a heartbreaker at Auburn, heartbreaker against LSU, heartbreaker at Missouri. They could have really won 5 or 6. And it's all about the people you got there and them. If you can conceive it and you can believe it, you can achieve it. Give the team, I know they finished with only 3 wins. They didn't get to play their bowl game against TCU. But, okay, it's time to hand out report card, and then we're going to go to Jimmy Hodge and get his report card. But Wes, Razorback report card on the 2020 first year of the Fighting Pittmans.
Well, you got to be careful with this because, fans, media, everybody, we're greedy.
Yeah.
And you got to remember what we thought when the year started, and a lot of people were thinking no wins, maybe 1, maybe 2. I was right in between 1 or 2 wins, but the goal for me was to get an SEC win, break that losing streak. You know what? And they did that. And we got to remember the wins against Mississippi State and Ole Miss and Tennessee. And that got them. They were 3-3 after 6 weeks. And you know what? Those last 4 games left a bad taste in your mouth. No shame in the losing to Florida or to Alabama. But it was disappointing to lose to Missouri. And you had the lead with less than a minute to go. And the defense, which won you the games against Mississippi State and Ole Miss, they let them down, and they couldn't stop Missouri all day long, and they couldn't stop them with a minute to go, and that's a disappointing loss. The LSU game, I understand. Arkansas was hit by COVID, and guys, we've talked about it. They lost all of their 2D on the defensive line due to COVID and contact tracing. They were playing redshirt freshmen, and they had no chance against that LSU offensive line, and LSU ran the ball at will against them. So I kind of understand. Even though they still had a chance to win that game, they lost it. You got to keep things in perspective. I'm going to give them a B. I grade them a B. They were improved on offense, much improved. Kendall Briles, they started off slow, and they got better on offense. They found a way to get their playmaker involved, and that playmaker is Treylon Burks. And guys, it's crazy to think as good as he is, last year's team with Chad Morris in control, they couldn't get Treylon Burks in the end zone. As good as he is, he never found the end zone. And this year, as a sophomore, he was the featured guy, and they found a way for him to get the ball in plenty of ways, and he found the end zone a lot this year. The offense got better. The defense regressed. There's no other way to put it. You look at their last, four out of their last 5 games, I believe, or 3 out of their last 4 games, they gave up 50 points or more. Now, that was against Alabama and Florida, against them in Missouri. But that's still, you can't be giving up 50-plus points a game in 3 of your last 4 games. The defense, they're thin. They got some good starters. They got but there's no backups. They're not deep at all. And when the injury started happening, they didn't have an answer. And so that's what led to the decline in the defense. And I think teams kind of figured out offensively what Arkansas was doing. They were rushing 3, dropping 8 into a zone, and they exploited that. But I'll give them a B because they surpassed expectations. They weren't average. To me, a C is average. They were above average as far as my expectations. So I'll give them a B. They're not an A. If you beat LSU and you beat Missouri to finish the year 4-6, I'll give them an A or an A+. But I'll give them a B for surpassing my expentations.
All right, no curve for the grading curve. Hey, Wes, I think I agree with you. And again, now Jimmy Hodge pointed out everybody was going crazy about Mississippi State and Mike Leach when they won that first game on the road at Tiger Stadium against the defending national champions LSU. The next week, the Razorbacks go to Starkville, and what happened? Look, Jimmy Hodge, you're up in Chicago. Great insight always. Give us your evaluation of the 2020 Fighting Pittmans.
Solid B. They just shocked everybody. I mean, I think the trend was set in the opener when they hung with Georgia for the better part of 3 quarters, and actually they took a 7-0 lead in the game, and they had a 95-yard touchdown pass called back because one of the interior linemen flinched, or they could have really had Georgia on the ropes, but. From that point on, I really think it gave that team a lot of confidence. Let's just get away from the political correctness. I mean, they had the Auburn game stolen from them. The LSU game, I mean, and they had a bunch of players missing, but the officiating in that game was just brutal. No. I mean, there's just, at this level of football that the SEC plays, let's cut to the chase. The officiating's got to get better. And they made a couple of calls in that game. Unless they killed LSU, you'd have a hard time convincing Bama fans after the Iron Bowl last year. But, hey, this SEC officiating, though, I didn't think it could be any worse after last year, but it was bad this year. And it really killed them in the LSU game. And then the Missouri game, I think it really was a situation, and Wes pointed it out, that Missouri they just ran out of gas. The positive virus test that plagued them throughout the season, their depth was just really tested, and they just ran out of gas at the end. But had they won the Auburn and LSU games, an absolute A, and if they would have beat Missouri, also A+. They did a tremendous job, and I tell you, I am shocked that they were able to keep Barry Odom, because when Texas comes after you, I mean, there's money being thrown at coaches out there when an opening like that comes up, but then there's Texas money. And how Arkansas was able to keep Barry, that's really impressive, and it really shows a bright future, for the Hogs, and I'm sure they're really feeling good about things.
Yeah,
I gotta say, it says a lot about Sam Pittman too. The relationship he has with Barry Odom. They go on a walk every day. Well, I don't know if they're still doing it, but during the season, they would go on a walk every single day and talk life, talk football. And I think they created some kind of friendship, some kind of bond, and Coach Pittman relied and leaned on Coach Odom a lot. And, we remember when Coach Pittman had COVID and missed the Florida game, Barry Odom took over the team, and he felt very comfortable with him coaching that team. And I think that goes back to their friendship. But I think it also says a lot, too, about just working for Coach Pittman. We hear this, the saying, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And I think Coach Odom realizes what he has working with Coach Pittman. And I'm sure, look, Arkansas is going to give him a raise. He was making $1.3 million, and somebody looked it up, and it was the 15th highest paid coordinator in the country. Well, that's not too shabby. Look, and Texas may have given him 2.1 or whatever, but I bet Arkansas is giving him a nice little raise, bumping him up a couple $100,000.
Wes, when you think about Arkansas, there is a ton of money in this state. Like I say, I'm in Arkansas all the time. I live in Memphis. I'm just across the river. Whether it's the Stevens in Little Rock, Jerry Jones, Tyson, J.B. Hunt, there's so much money. They did nearly $170 million worth of work to the stadium, holds about 80,000 people. Interest in the Hogs is really increasing. We know that in the state, there's 8 to 10 major college prospects a year. You cover, as part of your duties with Fox Sports 16, high school football in Arkansas. Are you hearing from high school coaches around the state that Sam Pittman and his staff are really connecting with them?
Yeah, no doubt about it. This coaching staff's done a great job. dividing up the state of Arkansas and trying to make sure that every high school has heard from a Razorback coach. This year's class, the 2021 class, it wasn't a good class. I think they're going to sign 4 guys from the state of Arkansas. They lost out on one, the Dre Norwood kid. He's a cornerback that's going to Texas A&M. And besides that, there's some others that they really didn't offer that's going to other colleges. But that it was just a weak class. Now, 2022, 2023, 2024 look really good. And Arkansas is all over those guys, and they have offers to these kids, and some of them have already committed. So, yeah, no, they're focusing in our Arkansas, and they're doing a very good job in Arkansas and Oklahoma. And that's Coach Pittman's home state, and he's doing a good job of getting some of those kids in the Tulsa area, the Oklahoma City area. He did a really good job in Oklahoma in the 2021 class.
And one other thing, and we got a couple of more minutes before we have to take a break, and then Jason Caldwell from inside the Auburn Tigers will join us. But I got to ask you this, Wes, and I'm gonna throw this one to Jake. It comes to recruiting. In the 8 years before Texas A&M came to the SEC, I believe the Hogs were 36-28 in the SEC. Prior to this season, in the 8 years, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, those 8 years, since A&M came to the SEC, the Razorbacks were 13-51. And we know about the Bobby Petrino mess, and then John L. Smith, and then Brett Bielema doing what he did. Now they've got, to me, they got the right fit. But Jake, what do you think about that theory?
Well, I mean, anytime you bring a team that's Division I and Power 5 and everybody knows about, and they're kind of right in your backyard per se, into the biggest conference, and really, if you're Arkansas, one of the pitches you had against A&M was, well, we're in the SEC and they're not. Obviously, you lose that when Texas A&M joins the SEC. And things are cyclical as well. I mean, that's a big number. That's a pretty big difference. And I think A&M does have something to do with it. But Arkansas, has kind of been through the ringer a little bit here lately, and the numbers the past couple of years have been really bad from a loss standpoint. But I think it's to the point now where Texas A&M is kind of so ingrained in the conference that it really doesn't matter anymore. I mean, it reaches a point to where it's now part of the recruiting pitch, and you don't even think about using certain pitches that you had against A&M nowadays that you did then. But I mean, I think A&M too culturally has got a good fit. They got an identity. They know who they are. Their players get along and they buy into that culture. And people and these prospects that are of the same mindset that are coming out nowadays, once you have that established, it's a lot easier to get guys not only to commit, but to go ahead and follow through and sign. But I mean, again, we could look back 10 years from now and say, A&M struggled since, whatever with Arkansas. But obviously that's something to do with it.
Yeah, when
Jake,
I look at it, the number one thing I think is Bobby.
I guess when you think about recruiting, you look at the state of Texas. It's important to Arkansas, but they're going into Oklahoma, they're going into Missouri, and they've got a lot of coaches on the staff at Arkansas that have deep South connections. I like to refer to Arkansas as the high South up in the corner. We got about a minute to go. And Wes, I want your, I guess, Wes, you answer this one. As close as Arkansas is to the Oklahoma border, and Sam Pittman is from Oklahoma, what has to happen for Arkansas to be successful? Because you can look at Georgia, 250 kids a year come out of that state, and there's some years when Georgia only signs half a dozen kids in their state. So, Jake, do they have to do well in Texas, or do you think this coaching staff can take this brand and start expanding?
Well, I'll tell you this. I think it's a little bit of everybody. They need to hit all the borders of Arkansas. They're hitting Oklahoma. They're going to hit East Texas and that Houston area, Dallas area, and they're hitting Louisiana and Mississippi and Memphis and Tennessee. And with LeBlanc and some of the other coaches on staff, they're hitting Georgia too. So they're doing a better job, I think, maybe going a little further east than I've seen in the past. I know they've got some kids on this team right now from Memphis, and they're still looking at that Memphis area. And look at KJ Hill. of Mississippi. He's going to probably be their starting quarterback next year. That's going to help them recruit Mississippi some. So they're not just focused in on, let's say, Texas or Oklahoma. They got to get them all, because unlike other states in the SEC, you're not going to get half your recruiting class from your backyard. You're just going to get 5, 6, 7, maybe at the most from the state of Arkansas. The other, 20 from it's going to come from Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Georgia.
Yeah, I just think this Arkansas staff is a really good group of recruiters. Look, Wes, we've got to go to a commercial break and get to Jason Caldwell, but tell people real quick, and we really want to thank you for being on here on Sidelines with us, how they can follow you, because you do a great statewide show every day in Little Rock covering the Razorbacks.
Man, I appreciate it. It's Wes_Moore, 2 S's in Wes, got 2 O's in Moore. You can listen to us on 1037thebuzz.com, or you can download the 1037 Buzz app and listen to us every day from 10 to 1.
Hey, do me a favor. Hey, I would love it if you could hook us up one time with one of my favorite all-time Razorbacks from Searcy, Arkansas, Weston Dacus. Love to have him on too. But look, we'll get you back on next week, and thank you so much, Wes.
All right. I'll see what I can do.
All righty. Hey, look, let's do this. Let's take a quick commercial break. We're broadcasting to you live today from Red River Ford Toyota in Wynn, Arkansas. They'll be open tonight till 6:30 or 7. Justin Wynn will be here. Rusty Howard, sales manager, Nate, whole crew, service department, everybody in here is here for one purpose: to make it the best buying experience for a car, truck, or SUV you've ever had. We're going to be right back. Jimmy Hodge up in Chicago, Jake Crane in Tupelo, and Jason Caldwell from inside the Auburn Tigers will be with you till 5 o'clock today Central, 6 on the East Coast. This is Sidelines.live. Okay, Jason?
Yeah.
Jason, you there?
Yeah, I am. I'm here.
I can hear it. What's wrong with this headset? Hello?
Hey,
I can't hear anything. Where are my guys? I can't hear the call. My guest.
Hey, Jason, I can hear you. You're good.
Jason,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah, I mean, I got you.
Can you hear anything? Hello? What happens if I disconnect this thing real quick? Doesn't cut my guys off, does it? I did. Do you have me installed? I can't hear anything. I can't hear anything. Hey, Jason. Yeah, I'm having problems on my end with my headset. Jimmy, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, Jake, you're there. Okay. We're on commercials. We'll be back here in about how long? Audrey? How many seconds? Okay, we'll be right back, guys. Got about a minute. Okay. All right, we'll be right back. I can't hear anything. I'm gonna find out who's responsible for this, and I will take that. I mean, this just started. How did they go bad? Yeah, this is crazy. I can't hear anybody. See, we're in stereo when we broadcast. Okay, how much longer do we come back? Okay, yeah. Put that on there. Okay, Rob Brown back here with you on the Friday afternoon edition of www.sidelines.live. We'll be with you again till 5 o'clock Central. Jimmy Hodge up in Chicago, Jake Crane in Tupelo, and Jason Caldwell now on with us from inside the Auburn Tigers. And let me say something real quick again about one of our sponsors, Tom Dorian, the Dorian Agency, 6240 Poplar Avenue. Give him a call, 901-328-5858. It's who Audrey and I deal with. Most people don't like talking about insurance, but you got to have it. Homeowners, property and casualty, you name it, you got to have it. Life insurance, Tom Dorian, I've known for 43 years. Easy to listen to. Go have that conversation with Tom Dorian. He has a great team that supports him in East Memphis, just before you hit the Chick-fil-A on Poplar near Massey. Great guy to talk to. Father of 5, played college football for the Memphis Tigers, started on the offensive line 3 years. Hey, the best guys in the world are those big guys in the trenches. Tom Dorian is one such man. Check them out on our website, the Dorian Agency. They're on our website at sidelines.live. Again, 901-328-5858. Open Monday through Friday. But once you work with Tom, he's always going to have your back. 901-328-5858. Jason Caldwell, been a lot going on over Christmas and New Year's, and our prayers are with you for your loss. And you're a great man, and you've been 20 plus years working with Mark Murphy, and I hope you know everybody out here has been keeping you in our prayers, and always love having you on the show. And tell us what's going on down there. Brian Harson, new Auburn coach, comes in from Boise State. Hiring, firing, lots going on, but you've forgotten more than we all know, and let her rip.
Yeah, it's been an interesting time with Brian Harson coming in, because it was such a different hire than Auburn normally makes. It was outside the box, and I think it's been very well received. Now, obviously, you never know. You never know what a hire's going to turn out like. Some of the guys that were can't miss hires missed, gloriously. Others, that nobody thought much of, turned out to be really good. So you don't know how it's going to turn out, but I do like the direction. I like a guy that comes in, and to me, he's a really aggressive, no nonsense. I don't get the impression he's really worried about much about anybody else. He understands what his job is to do, and you kind of see that by his coordinator hires. I love the hire Derek Mason. I think you're getting one of the best minds in college football on the defensive side of the ball. What he did at Stanford was turn them into an SEC defense. And obviously, they were a physical team, but that was an SEC defense playing in the Pac-12, and they got after it and put some really good players. And then at Vanderbilt, what they were able to accomplish was almost exclusively because of the defense. Offensively, it's harder to play and to do those things on offense at Vanderbilt, but he did a good job defensively there. Mike Bobo, I like because he's a quarterback guy. He's a quarterback developer. He's done that wherever he's been. And you look right now, and I think we see that the offense is going to be much different. Now, it may look similar because they'll still be multiple and they'll do some different things. I think the biggest thing is that you're going to be in a much more quarterback friendly system than Auburn's been in. And people that have talked about Jarrett Stidham, they talked about Bo Nix, all these things the last few years, that I hope people realize that no matter who the quarterback has been at Auburn under Gus Malzahn, if they didn't run the football, the offense struggled, no matter who it was. And you look in the last couple of years when they ran the football well, the passing game did pretty well also. But it was not a passing game that could survive without running the football very well. And I think that's one of the biggest changes that you look forward to on this this tenure, this system is putting quarterbacks in a much better position to succeed. And I think because of that, that's one of the most important things.
Jason, I'm going to ask Jimmy Hodge this first, then we'll go to Jake Crane. Your Boise State's been an amazing story. It's not just the last 5 or 10 years. It's been 20 plus. I don't think they even had a football program 60 years ago. Brian Harson, I think, has the 3rd or 4th best winning percentage in college football over the last 6 or 7 years. He's the personality I think Auburn's been wanting. What are your thoughts about this Auburn hire?
Well, I think it was described pretty accurately that it was outside the box. It's absolutely a fact that it's not something that Auburn normally does, and just the way they handled it. And I did want to ask, though, Jason, how you felt after the early days of the search when you heard all this scuttlebutt that it was going to be crystal ball, and then on the way out there that news broke that because of the China virus, Washington wasn't going to be able to play in the Pac-12 championship game, and it was going to be Oregon instead. and that hampered their ability maybe to have discussions with crystal ball, because the Oregon had this, I guess, this obscure policy in their university regulations that any head coach in their athletic department, but basically major sports, was in the process of competing for a championship, could not talk about any other jobs. And whatever was true or untrue about all that, obviously Auburn found themselves in a situation to move on to other candidates. How did you feel at that point? I know a lot of the Auburn people, I know Robin was pretty nervous about it. And then it ended up being Brian Harson, which was, like I said, a coach who's had a lot of success at Boise. He's from a different part of the country. And I'm wondering if the Auburn fan base and so forth, just looking at it from a distance, is it a wait and see? Because coaching, in the SEC is a different animal, but anytime you've had a coach with a lot of success and is bringing in a lot of fresh blood to the program and so forth, it certainly excites a lot of people also. So how do you maybe just correlate all those different intangibles in evaluating not only the hire, but how things have gone the first couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think first of all, I think knowing and understanding, a lot of people didn't, but knowing and understanding that this was absolutely going to be a search. I think people thought that it wasn't. They thought, well, this could be like it's been before. You hear a couple of names and then boom, it's done. That was not the plan from the get-go with this one. Allen Green I've been told by everybody that knows, that's familiar, that said he came in with a plan and he had people in mind that he wanted to talk to. And so I don't believe that they ever said, hey, this is our guy we're going after. I think they said, here's people we want to talk to. And man, when they talked to Brian Harson, I think they were pretty blown away. I think there's a couple of reasons why. First of all, that many people thought that he was a guy that might be gettable for a lot of programs. He grew up in Boise. He played there. He coached there. A lot of times you go, well, man, that's back where he belongs. You might not even try. So I think maybe the surprise is that he's a guy that was absolutely willing and sought out, hey, maybe an opportunity. So, but I know they're really impressed by him. And so as far as my take on it, I didn't think there was anything to panic about, because I knew that this was a little bit different. As soon as the first 24 hours passed and a hire wasn't made right away, then it was going to be an absolute search to go get the right guy. And I think they did a great job there. And as for the fans, I think there's a lot of excitement right now because it was different, because it wasn't kind of going up, well, somebody that you're familiar with or the same old guy. It was somebody really different. And because of that, I think that was a breath of fresh air for them.
Jason, Jake Crane from the J-Boy podcast is on. And Jake, you're on with Jason Caldwell. You and I have really talked a lot about Auburn needed a different personality, an alpha male, and Harson looks like that. What are your thoughts on this hire and what you've seen so far with the staff he's putting together?
Yeah, a lot of that. I like the hire for a lot of reasons that Jason just said. I think they brought in a guy, number one, that has a plan, that understands the structure he needs around him, and that involves the recruiting department and really taking that seriously and using it as a wing like these other places do. Because as I've said on multiple occasions, when you play Alabama and Georgia and all these teams, that game's typically won before the ball's ever kicked. And you have to have structure around you to be able to get in that fight, to be able to close on guys in recruiting. From a schematical standpoint, he's a quarterback developer and offensive mind, but I think he's also smart enough. And I think people think he's older than what he is. He's only 44. And I think that speaks to his maturity, going back to what Jason was saying about he's a no-nonsense guy. He has a blueprint. And I thought it really spoke to his acumen, these coordinator hires. Number one, you're bringing in two guys that have Southern ties, or that have coached in the South. in the SEC that have ties to high school coaches, that knows the areas that you can have success at a place like Auburn. They know where to go and they can get you a foot in the door. You marry that up with a big time recruiting department and you can do some things that Auburn hasn't done, especially signing guys up front. But then you look at them hiring also 2 guys that have been head coaches, even though Bobo was the interim at South Carolina, because it's a race for efficiency. That's what this deal is. People say, what does Nick Saban mean by the process? Well, it's a race for efficiency. How do I eliminate the clutter? Well, you eliminate the clutter by hiring guys that know what Tennessee wants to do offensively. They know what Jim Chaney wants to run on offense. They know his adjustments when you give him certain things. So now Brian Harson doesn't have to go uncover all these things by himself. He can walk into the next hallway, into the next office and say, hey, Coach Bobo, you've coached with Kirby Smart. You've coached against him and all this. What's he going to give us on offensively? And then you blend that in with what Harson likes to do philosophically on offense, which is a little more innovative than what Bobo likes to do or what his system is. But I think it truly is going to be a blend. I love the hire because it's a guy that left a place that he's from. He was born there, grew up there, walked on, played quarterback there. Dream job was to be the head coach, but he wants to see how good he can be. He understands how important Auburn is. And I think it's a very good fit because Auburn needs a guy that's about winning and it's about business and that isn't afraid to go toe-to-toe and actually win some of these battles. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to players. And if you go get the players, you give yourself a chance.
Yeah, let me question for you real quick, Jason. Getting a lot of text from people that are listening all over. Obviously, what do you know about Sharif Cooper and the basketball situation? Bruce Pearl said as of 2:00 today, he's not on the team with us. Also, possibility former Auburn defensive back. Everybody remembers him getting hurt in the Ole Miss game back in 2009 when he was laying there underneath Rodney Scott, the running back for Ole Miss out of Armwood High School in Sefner, Florida. Went on. He's now a defensive backs coach, but maybe coming back to Auburn. And the possibility also of Cadillac Williams and Travis Williams being retained by Harson on the Auburn staff. Real quick, talk about those.
Yeah, obviously, first, Sharif is Bruce Pearl said, hey, we're in constant contact right now with the NCAA, which means those things can happen, pretty quickly. So, I think, Mark Murphy's planning to go early tomorrow. And if they see Sharif Cooper in a uniform, then that obviously be big news for Auburn because they need the point guard back out there to help them kind of run the show. He hadn't played at all. It would be an adjustment period for him. At least you would have, the highest rated player in school history that we know of. Obviously, Chris Morris and Frank Ford, some of those guys. There might not have been a number attached to them, but Sharif Cooper, in terms of the rankings era, is the highest rated player Auburn's ever signed. And so getting him on the court would be huge. And as far as, you start looking at the other things, talking about coaches, Zach Etheridge is a guy that everybody you mentioned, I guess it means I'm getting old, but you mentioned Zach and Travis Williams and Cadillac are all 3 guys that I covered in the recruiting process when they were coming out of high school. So I don't know if that makes me feel good or bad, but be 3 great guys too. Zach Etheridge is as good a guy as you can find. Was a good football player and a guy that was always a coach on the field. And so he's done a really good job at Louisiana in the last 2 years at Houston. But, he spent a year at Penn State as a grad assistant, spent 2 years under Ted Roof at Georgia Tech as a grad assistant. And then he's worked his way through, Western Carolina and some different places. And so he's earned his stripes. And if you're Derek Mason, you would assume Derek Mason, much like guys like Nick Saban and others, he's the defensive coordinator, but he's going to be out there coaching the DBs because that's what he does. So you can bring a younger DB coach in to kind of join forces with you and do some of those things. So, any and all, I think of those guys would be guys that would be very beneficial to the Auburn staff.
Hey, talk about Powell playing tomorrow.
Justin did not practice as of today. So if he is cleared, then he'd be good to go tomorrow. But if he does, it'll be without practicing. And so, obviously when you have the concussion issues or, whatever it is for him as far as the head injury, I think that's something they just very careful with at the moment. But as of today, he did not practice. And so that makes it even bigger issue if you could get a Sharif Cooper out there tomorrow.
Hey, one more question before we go, because we're going to have to go to a commercial break. But I want to ask you this. Auburn's early recruiting in the December signing period was way off by Auburn standards. I think if you look at the 8 years Gus was there, the average ranking was 8th or 9th in the country. Right now, they're in the 50s. how much ground can Brian Harson make up with this new staff? Obviously, Mike Bobo, Will Friend, Derek Mason. He's got guys that are familiar with the cutthroat, vicious environment that is SEC recruiting. Like Mark Twain said, if you like the law or sausage, don't ever watch either one of them being made. And I'll just add, don't ever watch recruiting when it happens. Can he make up a lot of that ground? Because, again, people's concern, well, Brian Harson's from Idaho. He's not from the South. Well, I got news for you. Auburn University is located in the South in Alabama. Last time I checked, on the Georgia line, and there are players falling out of the sky around there. It's just, what do you do with the players in terms of development? And that's been Auburn's biggest downfall, is not developing the quarterbacks and the offensive linemen. Will Friend out of Neshoba County High School, Philadelphia, Mississippi, 4-year starter at Bama, left the Tennessee staff under Jeremy Pruitt. We're going to get into that in the second hour. A lot of guys have left Jeremy, but your thoughts real quick.
Yeah, I think he makes up some ground. The interesting thing is this class is actually 16th or 17th in terms of average star ranking. They just didn't sign as many guys as other teams, so they're not ranked as high, but some quality players to start with. But obviously, you got to go sign some offensive linemen. Probably going to need a running back, maybe two. You got to have some other guys in the room to give you some depth at that position, especially because they're going to run the football. But, you need a pass rusher, kind of how you develop those guys. But I think they can to make up some ground. And to your point about, Brian, Harson not being from the Southeast, Urban Meyer did pretty good at Florida, coming from Utah.
So did Nick
Ohio
Saban.
Guy. Nick Saban did it at LSU from Michigan State. So if you can coach football, and I think it's shown that, those guys can adapt and adjust, because that's what you do no matter where you are. I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, I do too. Listen, Jason Caldwell, again, we're so glad to have you on the show, and we'll keep you in our prayers, you and your family, and look forward to having you back on again here. And if anything breaks on Sharif Cooper or anything, text us in during the show. We got a lot of people listening. Had a lot of people texting, wanting to know those questions specifically. But tell people real quick how they can follow you on Inside the Auburn Tigers.
Yeah, you can check us out. Like I said, autigers.com will get you there. Auburn 247. Also, follow me on Twitter at ITATJason.
Jason Caldwell, always a pleasure to have you. Tell Mark Murphy hello, Philip Marshall, the whole gang. I've read you 24/7. I'm on your website at night, early in the morning. You can't get enough great stuff. Jason Caldwell, Inside the Auburn Tigers. Let's do this. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back. Jimmy Hodge up in Chicago, National College Football contributor. We're going to be joined by Rodney Orr of Tider Insider, talking about the Alabama-Ohio State National Championship game on Monday. Jake Crane had to bounce for an interview. He'll be back in the fold at 4:30. And we're going to be joined again by Justin Wynn, General Manager, Red River Ford Toyota over here in Wynn, Arkansas, about 45 minutes from Memphis. Great place. I love this energy of these people over here. We're in the war room, in the strategy room, where they meet and get the plan for every day. But if you're looking for a car, truck, or SUV, new or used, you want to come over here. It is time well spent. And I got one thing to say to you, Perkins. Okay, showboat, come on in here. If you want to call, we're going to have second hour Rodney Oregon, Tider Insider, Mark Slaybaugh, ESPN.com with us, and covering a lot. College football, basketball, baseball, recruiting. We're a sports radio show. We find excuses to win. We'll be right back.
History. Good, man. Okay, Texas money.
Rob, you're gonna have to get back in here.
Ready? Put me back on speaker so I can hear the commercials. Okay. Go. I'm gonna pull off here and talk to Jimmy real quick. Jimmy, you there? Hey, this is fun, man. I'm having a problem with my headsets, and so I'm having to listen to it on the speaker from the computer. Does it sound okay? Okay, perfect. Okay, thanks. Be right back with you.
Awesome.
You don't duck hunt, do you?
Oh yeah.
It's my wife Audrey right
Hey,
here.
how are you?
I don't think I've hunted every day but 6 days this year.
Have you really?
Can't go in the office, so we
Yeah,
have
gotta
to.
do
We
something,
got to
huh?
get up and hunt.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah. How much can we come back? We back?
I think it's right after this one.
Okay. Tell me when it's over. Okay. Tell me when to just go like that when we come back. But we'll get you to talk about the service and all because,
Okay.
like I say, we live in Memphis. But we've been in parking since December 10th. We
Right.
go to Memphis 3 or 4 days a week and deposit checks and do stuff and come back. Man, this is fun. It's been a wild season. Some days you go, it's like fishing. You don't catch
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, it is.
Hey, they call it hunting. It ain't
Yeah.
shopping.
Yeah. It's. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. You about ready? Okay. Hey, Rob Brown back here with you on the Friday afternoon edition of the Sidelines.live podcast, broadcasting right now. We are live in the War Room, Red River Ford Toyota over in Wynne, Arkansas. And we've been with Justin Wynn, the general manager, in the first hour. They bought the dealership October 5th. Those of you listening, and I'm getting a lot of texts from people because a lot of you know John Dobbs Jr. He's part of the Red River Auto Group. And you know the Dobbs family name in the car and truck business, the Great Hull, Mr. Dobbs, his father goes back a long way. They're back. John Dobbs is part of this group. If you're coming from Memphis on 64, going back and forth to Heber Springs, it's easy to find. About a half mile south of 64 on Highway 1 there, right by the Walmart. Go down about a half mile. You cannot miss Red River Ford Toyota. I-40, you're going to Little Rock. Do yourself a favor. Get off at the Forest City exit. Go north about 11 miles. Go through Colt, and you'll hit Wynn, and they're there. They're here every day of the week except Sundays. They'll be here tonight till 6 or 7 until the last sale is done. But we're going to be joined now by the head of the service department, which is incredibly important, or one of the top guys in the service department. You buy a car, truck, or SUV, if it's new or used, maintenance is critical. If you don't take care of it, it ain't going to happen. You're going to have problems. Talk about what that experience is like, what all y'all have to offer people.
Okay, so we can basically work on just about anything, and if we can't fix it, we'll get it to one of our other dealerships that can. We are an aggressive service department. I mean, we try to take care of all our customers. Ever since Red River's got here, we've upped our game. We're ready to go, and if we can't fix it, we'll get it fixed one way or the other. But we fix just about everything under the sun here, and we're glad to take care of our customers here.
Well, tell people real quick. You got to get your oil serviced. That's basic, okay? But just to come in here, when you get those checks, you get something in the mail, you get an email or a text, time for regular maintenance when you buy a vehicle, whether it's new or used. How important is it that you stay on that strict structured schedule?
It's very important. We see many older vehicles that has been abused from, not getting maintenance and serviced, and it kind of gets, people in a pickle as far as trying to, fix their old car or buy a new one. And if they stick to that schedule and, take care of the vehicles right, here, for example, we offer a 99-point inspection that we do here. We look over the vehicles thoroughly. If we see a leak or something, we'll notify customers or brakes or whatever the case may be. And, it's very important to take care of your vehicle.
Right. One last thing before we let you go. We got a member of our club, 19 years old. He's a sophomore up in Fayetteville, University of Arkansas. Okay. Now, twice in the last few weeks, one time I had to go pull him out, go 2 miles into one of our spots, pull him out with my tow strap. And I'm driving an F-150. It's black. It's Mississippi Delta mud right now because it's duck season. And I said, why did you go that far in? And he said, well, my 4-wheel drive thing said, check 4-wheel drive. I said, and you continue to drive. I sound like I'm cross-examining him in a deposition. I'm not, but I said, why'd you do that? He goes, well, he's 19. I pulled him out. He got stuck again the other day, barely did it. And they said, I took it somewhere and they said, it looks good to us. Can you help him? He's driving a 2010 or 11 Ford F-150. And I mean, you can help people like that because I know his dad and him are listening right now back at the house and parking at the Cherry Farm. So give him a little doctor advice.
Okay, so usually when your check 4-wheel drive light comes on, it can be a many of things, but usually in those models, it's your 4-wheel drive shift motors. They could not be engaging or something like that. Best thing to do is let us look at it. I mean, if you get it here, get it in front of us, we'll get you a quote to fix it, and we'll get you taken care of. We see a lot of that around here, being in the South, and duck hunting's a huge thing, and muddy field roads, muddy roads, period. So, yeah, just bring it by, and we'll be glad to check it out. And if you have any questions, call us 870-238-7770.
Give me your name one more time.
My name is Austin. I'm service advisor here at Red River Ford Toyota.
Well, let's put it this way. You got a car dealership. You're selling cars, trucks, and SUVs. You're like the people on the front line, the CFO, the CEO of a hospital, and then you got the doctors and the nurses. That's the service department. That's how important you are. I can tell you that right now. Red River Ford Toyota, Wynn, Arkansas. They're open tonight till 6:30 or 7. Like Justin says, till the last sale is done, but they will be back bright and early in the morning, and we're going to be here with you till 5 o'clock. Thank you so much for coming in here with us. And, hey, we're supposed to have Rodney Orr joining us here in just a minute from Tider Insider. We're going to be talking about that matchup between Alabama and Ohio State coming up on Monday night. And I'm just, Jimmy, you haven't heard anything yet, have you, about Ohio State wanting to change that game? Because that would be, I can't imagine it. And again, I'm going to give Ohio State credit for what they did because they pushed back against that false narrative. There was no way college football could be played this year.
Yeah, and they really pushed hard for it. The players did, and again, the story I told regarding Trevor Lawrence and his roommate, and a day before, I think it was the Big Ten announced that they weren't going to be playing this fall. They put together that conference call with Justin Fields, Najee Harris, Chuba Hubbard, Penei Sewell at Oregon, and put together a Twitter message expressing their concerns about the players not being heard in all of this, and it really sparked a lot of reaction, including the very next day from Ryan Day, Scott Frost, Jim Harbaugh, and that really kind of started the quote-unquote resistance movement of not giving up on playing football in the 2020 season. And they were certainly very persistent about it, as were the parents of prominent players from multiple schools in the Big Ten. So they certainly do deserve a lot of credit. And they just took advantage of a couple of loopholes. They were supposed to play 6 regular season games to get into the conference championship game, but the conference made an exception for them, and that's just how it works. It's been one of these years where just nothing was normal. You had countless games scheduled on the fly within a 2 or 3 day timetable. BYU in particular probably scheduled 6 or 7 games like that. Finally, we're able to come to an agreement with an opponent on Monday or Tuesday, and they're playing them that Saturday. So it was just one of those years we'll never forget. And again, it may set the table maybe for a couple of new precedents to be possibly set for the future, like maybe a ninth SEC game, before too long. You just never know.
Yeah, you're right. And look, Rodney Orr's going to be joining us. He has let me know that he's detained on something. He might be interviewing the Sabanator, Nick Saban. I'm not sure, but Rodney's going to join us here in a few minutes. And again, about 4:33 Central Time, we're going to be joined by Mark Slaybaugh, lives down around Athens, Georgia. And if he's, I don't think he's not. He may be in a deer stand. I know the first time we had him on, he toasted a 10-point or a 12-point big buck down there. So he likes being on this show. We're good for his luck. But look, let's talk about that Alabama-Ohio State matchup. Ryan Day has lost one game in 2 years in the Big Ten. Look, Michigan football is old news. Ohio State's won 15 of the last 16 in that rivalry. The last Michigan Big Ten championship season was 2004. I don't know what's going on, but again, Michigan football is just treading water. Actually, they're trying to tread water in quicksand, which is kind of an oxymoron. But Ohio State is loaded. They recruit nationally. You and I were talking, Jimmy, a couple of days ago off the air about when Tom Herman, who just got fired at Texas, was on the staff with Urban Meyer at Ohio State, and he said, look, we need to start recruiting the state of Texas. If you look at the numbers, Texas, close to 400 players a year from the high schools in that state, 29 million people that we know of in Texas, close to 400 a year. Second behind them is I think Florida now has surpassed California. There's been an exodus of players, Jimmy, people leaving California for a lot of reasons. They don't want to live out in the PRC, the People's Republic of California, with the lockdowns. They're leaving. They're going all over the country. A lot of these guys are coming to the South. And the state of Florida is third in the country for producing players, around 380 a year. Fourth is Georgia now at about 250. And fifth is Ohio at about 160. Michigan has been getting shut out of the state of Ohio, and that's killing them. Ohio State gets anybody they want, but they're going into Texas. Talk about that narrative with Ohio State when that started to change the way Urban Meyer and Ohio State recruited much more on a national level, and look where they are today, playing for the national title game Monday night.
Well, no doubt about it. I mean, when Urban hired Tom Herman from Iowa State, nobody had really heard about him. He had done a great job at Iowa State and had actually played at Texas Lutheran, and believe it or not, for one or two of his seasons at Texas Lutheran, he was teammates with Dave Aranda of all places.
Wasn't it California Lutheran?
No, it was it was Cal Lutheran, and then there I think the head coach at Cal Lutheran, or the defensive coordinator, he was buddies with somebody, maybe the president at Texas Lutheran, and they were resurrecting their football program, and I guess his coach at Cal Lutheran knew the guy who was going to be the head coach at Texas Lutheran, and that's where Herman got his shot. And then he moved on. He coached at Sam Houston State and Rice and Texas State, I believe. So he really got a baptism of the football culture in Texas, developed a tremendous number of relationships with high school coaches, and he convinced Urban into going after Texas players, and Urban's original response was we're wasting our time, and it wasn't long before they got some key players out of Texas, and of course right now they have landed commitments from his name is Ewers. He's the number one ranked high school quarterback in the country from South Lake Carroll, who had decommitted from Texas, and another 5-star player from at a nearby high school in the Dallas area, who also decommitted from Texas, and committed to Ohio State. So Herman really got that. Ohio State's really done well in Texas, and it just shows you, if you're just persistent and you get to know a couple of people, key people, you can really make a lot of inroads on the recruiting trail, because it's about relationships.
Yeah, it is absolutely all about relationships. Hey, Jimmy Hodge, Rodney Orr, Tider Insider, 25 years and counting, the source for following the Crimson Tide. And Rodney, look, glad to have you on Sidelines. I'm not sure if you were talking to Coach Saban, or I guarantee it was something important, and I would not want to break away from a meeting when the Sabanator is speaking, but welcome to Sidelines.
All right, guys, I appreciate you having me, Rob and Jimmy, and I hear the dog in the background, and so it sounds like you guys are off to a great start. Actually, to be honest with you, I was doing a little check trying to get the latest on Jalen Waddle, and how things have gone in practice this week. And again, you never really know with an injured player coming off of that type of injury, one that's kept him out for 8 weeks or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And, my understanding is he had I think 3 days ago, he came back, had a nice practice, ran pretty well. The next day was in full pads, but was really light. He didn't do much. And then understand that yesterday it looked really, really good in the first part of practice, running routes really smoothly. And, I think sometimes what happens though with these injuries is, you can do that, but there's always that soreness. And I think that's probably what he experienced. And I think today he probably took it light, before they hit they're on the plane I think here at 4:45 headed to Miami. So that's the latest that I've got on Jalen Waddle in terms of where he is right now.
Rodney, the injury that everybody saw October 24th, Jalen Waddle in the Tennessee game, he does so much for Alabama. Last year he was regarded in the Iron Bowl as the number 4 Alabama receiver. He ended up scoring a couple of touchdowns and over 247 yards total offense in that game. He was, along with Devontae Smith, they were 2 of the top 3 or 4 Heisman contenders, and Jalen gets hurt. Devontae, a great player, obviously in his own right, gave a great message. I loved his Heisman speech. My friend Boyd, Alabama grad, reminded me of that speech. He said, hey, put God first. The young kids out there, anything you want to accomplish, follow your dreams and never quit, and just keep tying knots in the rope, hang on and keep fighting, and you'll get what you want. But man, if Jalen Waddle's out there, that's another migraine headache for the Ohio State coaches. And hey, I'm an SEC guy. I mean, just the way it is, I don't care.
Well, I'll say this: we'll see how much he can play, if at all, if he can contribute, if maybe he can get in, and just his presence certainly will change things. So we'll see about that. I'm not really sure what his status is right now. Nick Saban has maintained that it would be a game day decision. He has been cleared. But I think a lot of that's how does he respond? Is the soreness? Is there any swelling? These types of things can certainly impact whether or not he plays. And I think too, a lot of it, when you have a player, it's going to be with an injury. It certainly gets between ears a little bit. I mean, that's nothing unusual. So I think it's going to be Jalen's call come Monday night. Are you ready? Do you think you can play? Can you give us 15 snaps, 20 snaps, whatever it is? We'll just have to wait and see, how it unfolds.
Jimmy Hodge up in Chicago, National College Football contributor for Sidelines.live. Does Alabama have to have Jalen Waddle to have a great chance to beat Ohio State? I want him there because I'm a huge fan of his, out of Bellevue, Texas. But he's just a fantastic. He brings so much energy. But what are your thoughts on that?
No, they don't need him. I mean, their offense has been right up there with LSU of 2019. In fact, you've heard more than a few insiders who watched the league for a long time say it's it's every bit as good. I mean, especially with the the deep passing game. And they've had some players really step up. Mechie has just been outstanding. And then you have Billingsley, who is another really difficult matchup. He's technically listed as a tight end, but in the college game, realistically, he's not. He doesn't do much blocking, but he's he's kind of a Pitts type of player, except I think he's faster. He's really dangerous once he gets the ball into the open field, and he's been I think a surprise to everybody. I think it's just a testament to at this level, if you just go out there every day and try to get better, you never know. One of these days, they just find it and they develop this confidence and they make a big play or two in a game, which he's obviously done this year. And that convinces them that, hey, I can really be a factor at this level. So he's been outstanding. I thought Forrestall was the healthiest I had seen him look all year. He had good quickness after he caught a couple of throws and actually, made some decent yardage after the catch. And, the key here is, the offensive line they've got to give Mac time to throw the ball, because that was where Ohio State really surprised some people against Clemson. That defensive front just dominated the Clemson offensive line. So obviously that's been a big focus for Bama this week, and also up front on the defensive side. I mean, they've got to stop Sermon, who's been running roughshod out there the last 2 weeks, the last 2 games. And so they got to stop that running game and force Ohio State into having to throw the ball when they don't want to.
Yeah, you always want to make people do what they don't like to do. Any opportunity you have, and Alabama has the talent to do it. Hey, Rodney, Jake Crane of the J-Boy podcast, as you know, has joined us. He had an interview, had to bounce off for a while. He's back with us. Jake, we're talking. Rodney was a little bit late joining us today, trying to get the latest about Jalen Waddle. He's been at practice. We don't know if he'll play Monday night or not, but I know you got some questions about the big game coming up on on Monday. And we don't know what's going to happen, but what are your thoughts, Jake Crane, while we got Rodney Orr on here? Okay. Let me ask you this, Rodney. Alabama, all season long, this is the greatest offense literally in school history that I've seen. I mean, they've broken every record imaginable. You look at this Alabama offense. They're what have they not done? And again, Jake Crane, you're on here with us right now with Rodney Orr. But before we go back to Jake, Rodney, is this Alabama offense unstoppable?
Well, I'm not going to say that. I mean, I think I think it depends on the game. How do they play? Look, and this is just me. Again, I'm not claiming to know this for a fact. Don't get me wrong, but I thought early in the season that the best defense I had seen, front to back, talent-wise, was Georgia. And, I think that's the defense that, as I recall, really challenged them the most, And still, Alabama put up, 41 points, 500-plus yards on that defense. And that was a very, very talented defense. It was healthy at the time, totally different than they were later in the season. And I just think that when you look at, I would agree exactly with what Jimmy said. Alabama protecting Mac Jones against that defensive front. Obviously, they went up against Georgia, did a pretty good job. There was a few times in that game when Georgia got to Mac. There was a couple of times that he seemed to be out of sorts, but he responded really well. So I think, in terms of what happens in this game, I don't know if they're going to have a couple of guys out or not. Supposedly, they're going to have a couple of their key defensive linemen miss the game, but neither here nor there. I just think you've got to be able to protect Mac and give him time to make those throws. And if they can do that, then I think they're going to have a lot of opportunities to make plays. But I will say this, too, real quickly, and then I'll let you guys say whatever, finish it up. But, staying on that the same kind of track with what Jimmy said about I just thought the Clemson offensive line. I mean, I'm not taking anything away from Ohio State. Okay, their defense front was impressive, but I'd really like you guys' input on this. I was just surprised. I just did not think the Clemson offensive line was very athletic. I mean, they reminded me of that 2017 offensive line they had that got obliterated in the Sugar Bowl down there against Alabama and made Anthony James look like Lawrence Taylor. So I'd be interested to hear what you guys think. I mean, was this all the Ohio State defensive line, or was it a combination of maybe the Clemson offensive line just got exposed?
Rodney Orr, that's a great question. I'm going to throw that one to Jake Crane.
Yeah, good to be back, guys. In that game, and Cole Kubick said something a couple months ago, I thought, because it kind of stood out to me, because we typically talk SEC, but he was talking about Clemson's offensive line and how, they don't look like normally Clemson looks. And it's not just, the way they play, it's the way they look. There's not a lot of guys that you look on Clemson's offensive line and go, man, that guy just looks like an absolute dominant player, and they've recruited really well. But I think Ohio State defensively, and I'm a firm believer in this. I mean, they played 6 games. All right, you look at the amount of games Clemson's played. Ohio State's a lot healthier and fresher than every team that they're going to play, just based on the amount of games that you played. And Clemson looked a little worn to me, not only on the offensive line, but in the secondary as well. Typically, Clemson's really good in the secondary, just from a silent standpoint and a leverage standpoint. And there were multiple times where they just had horrible eye discipline. And I don't want to take anything away from Ohio State and say that's the only reason they won. But when you watch the way Ohio State's guys come off the ball and the way that some of these teams that have been playing with guys that are playing through injuries and backups that are playing and young guys that have had to be playing, it's a little bit different. And make no mistake, Ohio State's got NFL players all over that roster. And I think Clemson took them a little bit for granted because of the way they played against Northwestern. Especially early, and then Skowski went out and they couldn't recover. But I think the freshness is something that not a lot of people are talking about, and it won't get talked about because Justin Fields is a little banged up, so the narrative won't be there. But if you look up front, Ohio State has probably taken, if you look at the amount of snaps that a starter up front has taken for Alabama compared to the amount of snaps that a starter from Ohio State has taken, it's probably double, if not more. So that always comes down to it, especially later in the game, later in the year.
Yeah, this Ohio State Alabama is going to be a collection of future NFL players. Ohio State and LSU both tied, having 14 players in a single draft. LSU just did it last year. Ohio State 3 or 4 years ago. Whoever wants to answer this question, if it's pure, if the teams are evenly matched, Ryan Day in his second year as a head coach with 1 loss. Nick Saban has been coaching 24, 25 years, obviously a lot more experience, but he just wins year after year after year. And, it's hard to say that Ryan Day is not as good a coach as Nick Saban. And by the way, we've just been joined by Mark Slaybaugh, ESPN.com has joined us. We've got Jimmy Hodge up in Chicago, Jake Crane down in Tupelo, host of the J-Boy podcast. And Mark, we got Rodney Orr going a little bit long here with us from Tider Insider. And Rodney covers the Tide, and we're talking about Jalen Waddle and the Alabama-Ohio State matchup. And but again, both teams are loaded. Anyone that wants to answer this question, I'd love to hear it. Who's got the advantage when it comes, because the Blue Chip Index, which is a ranking of talent of 4- and 5-star players over a 4-year cycle, number 1 in the country, the most 4- and 5-star players, it's pretty obvious. It's Alabama at 83%. Number 2 is Georgia at 82%. And number 3 is Ohio State at 80%. And Mark, you just joined us, and if you could take a jab at that question, see if you. I know you're going to have a good answer.
Yeah, Rob. I mean, if Justin Fields plays like he played last week against Clemson, then Ohio State's got a chance. If he doesn't, then I don't think Ohio State's got much of a chance. I just think with the way Ohio State's secondary here, going into last week, they ranked dead last in the Big Ten and pass defense, even with Sean Wade back there. Alabama has so many weapons, and you can throw Najee Harris out of the backfield. Devontae Smith's the best player in college football, more than deserving of the Heisman Trophy and everything else he's won. And Mac Jones does a great job of distributing the football. I don't know that Jalen Waddle is going to play. I'd be surprised. I think he's a potential top 10 pick. Hasn't played in a month. I don't think it's worth the risk, even for a national championship.
Yeah, I mean he's super talented. I know Rodney was working on trying to find out, and Rodney, you're on with us as Insider Insider. You're right there in Tuscaloosa, and again those are good points. There's so many that can be made. The injury was October 24th, so it's been 2.5 months. And have you had a chance to actually see Jalen when he's been out on the practice field?
Well, the problem is that we haven't seen the practice field since probably last December.
I forgot. What am I thinking? It's the year of the virus.
No, we haven't been able to get our brief media viewing period, as I refer to it.
Those were the days, weren't they?
Now. So yes, but I tell you, you did get now you can look back at it and see how much you could glean in 10 or 15 minutes, But, like I said earlier, I know he's had some flashes this week in practice of, showing that he's certainly got the ability to run routes and do all those things. But I go back to what I said, Rob. I still think that when you have these kinds of injuries, you have flare-ups with whether it's swelling or soreness or whatever. And I think he's probably, just like anyone else, experiencing those types of things. And, it could, I would have to agree with Mark. I mean, if he plays in this game, I think Alabama fans would certainly be thankful for that. But I just don't know that that's going to happen. I mean, I thought maybe earlier in this week it was more of a possibility. But if you made me say now, I would say probably I would be skeptical that he could contribute much in this game. That's just based on what I'm hearing today.
Yeah, I want to ask Mark Slaybaugh this question that I'm going to. After that, I'd like for Jimmy Hodge and then Jake Crane to answer it. Mark, you look at Nick Saban. This is potentially going to be national championship number 7. I think Alabama's going to win the game. There's a lot of people out there who probably want Nick Saban to retire, and then they'll say all kind of nice things about him. I think he's great for college football. I like the bar constantly being raised. I hope when I'm his age, which ain't going to be that long, I got that kind of energy and focus. But what do you think?
I mean, every time I've asked him about it, he says he's not ready to retire anytime soon because he just doesn't know what else he'd do. I mean, I think he'd be tremendous on college football on ESPN's, College Game Day or whatever. He's 69 years old. He's in tremendous health. I do think that with some of the issues and changes that are occurring in college football with name, image, and likeness and other things, the one-time transfer rule, which is going to benefit Alabama probably more than anybody. But, I just think with some of the changes, maybe he thinks about it a little bit more because I just think, college football is a dramatically different sport than it was even 5 years ago. And I think it's going to continue to change. And I think some of the older coaches probably aren't going to have to put up with some of the stuff they're going to have to deal with.
Yeah, it's tough. Jimmy Hodge, Nick Saban, amazing. Just here it is, about to win Monday night when we go to bed. Depends on how much Jack and Coke we have. A lot of people are going to be, hey, is this it? I think Nick Saban's going to be around a long time. Coach Bryant famously said once or twice or 3 times, if I ever retired, I don't know what I'd do. I'd probably croak in 30 days, and he did almost to the day. But Jimmy Hodge, what do you think?
Yeah, I just don't foresee him stopping anytime soon. He just seems to be re-energized by the challenge of a new team every year. And, he said countless times, I mean, he barely remembers life without being a part of a team. And he's I think he's just challenged every year. And, contrary to popular belief, everybody thinks Alabama's an easy job. I mean, one of the hardest things in coaching to do is to get all these ballyhooed players who have been, in many cases pampered from the time they were recognized as potential Power 5 stars, and to mold them into a unit. I mean, you guys have all seen a lot of teams that had press clippings and had all these, 5-star athletes that had unlimited potential, but then everybody's different. You got to be able to fit into the culture. Some of these players do not react well to having to go up against players who have and change things and try to get better. So he's just so really good at that. And but actually, talking about this matchup on Monday, which would give him 7 national championships, I think Mark hit it right on the head about the Ohio State defense. I mean, they are nowhere close to as good as last year. And of course, you don't replace Chase Young and Jeff Okudah. You don't find guys like that anywhere. But, the only 2 ranked teams they played coming into the Clemson game last week, they did not play well against Notre Dame the first time. I'm sorry, Indiana, when they hung on for dear life, and then against Northwestern. And I think another factor, when you talk about that semifinal game, Ohio State had been laying low, waiting for this game for a year, even though there was no guarantee it would be played. As the matchup would call for a rematch. But when you're working out at 6 a.m. and you see multiple TV monitors flashing that 29-23 score, with Clemson on the long end, that motivated them, and they played at their absolute peak that game. And Mark knows as well as anybody, when you're talking about a long season like that, for Ohio State, it wasn't a long season, but man, even the top coaches can only get a team to peak maybe 2 or 3 times, and that's over a 13-14 game season, to play at their ultimate potential. And I think it's going to be hard for Ohio State to bounce back. And you guys also saw this game, and it looked like an absolute Red Cross ward out there. Every other play, players were just being drug off the field. They were down for 30, 45 seconds. The physicalness of that game had to take a lot out of Ohio State. And I can't think Fields is going to be 100%. If you just looked at his ribs, maybe he is. But I think it's going to be really tough for Ohio State to come back and play at that level again.
Mark Slaybaugh, what do you think?
I think, I just, like I said earlier, I think with the weapons Alabama has, I think, defensively, they're going to have to slow down Trey Sermon, who's been really good the last couple of games, the Oklahoma transfer. I think, for the most part, the teams that have hurt Alabama's defense this year have been the teams that have a mobile quarterback with the ability to throw it, Matt Corral and some other guys. But, with Fields and his ribs, I just got to think the first time he takes a shot to the right side, he's going to be in pain. He's tough as hell, though. He's stuck in there last week 2 weeks ago after a couple of shots. So we'll see. We'll see if he holds up.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Guys, if everybody can hang with us. Rodney Orr, listen, I know you've got a lot going on. And we ran a little bit long and kept you longer than we meant to, but we love having you on here. Before we let you off, we're going to have you back on tomorrow morning's broadcast of Sidelines.live. We'll be on Sports 56 WHBQ, 8 to 10 a.m. Central. Rodney, we're going to get you back on to talk more about Monday night's game, but tell people how they can follow your Alabama Crimson Tide with Tider Insider, because you are the source for Capstone, all things Bama.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Rob. You know, it's 25 years, titerinsider.com. It's only $48 a year. It's just $4 a month, and you can get access with your credit card if you prefer. There's an address there to send a check. Gives you access to all our premium information, but also our all sports forum, where it's a constant flow of information exchange and sometimes some healthy entertainment there that is certainly worth the $4 a month. But again, it's titerinsider.com.
All right, Rodney Orr, thanks so much. Again, talk to you in the morning. Let's do this. We got Jimmy Hodge up in Chicago, Jake Crane down in Tupelo, and Mark Slaybaugh just south of Athens, GA, over there. I don't know if you're up in the deer stand yet, but we're going to be back with more talk. We're at Red River Ford Toyota live over here in Wynn, Arkansas. And Showboat, you're listening out there, Perkins. You're going back and forth to Heber Springs all the time on Highway 64, about a half mile south, right there below the Walmarts. Is Red River Ford Toyota. Come check these folks out. They are great people to work with. We'll be with you for a good bit longer on the Friday afternoon edition of Sidelines.live. It is January 8th. I know Grand Bob's been texting me going to remind people what day it is, because people that don't hear the show live can always go to Sidelines.live and hear all of our shows. But we'll be right back, folks. How about them showboats? Hey guys, I'll be right back with y'all. Jake, you on?
Uh-huh.
All right, Jake, you on? Okay. All right, and Mark and Jimmy, I'll be right back, guys, and we're gonna get back in and talk some college football. I've got one of my guys I work with, Mark. Like to get your thoughts on kind of some of the Lane Kiffin and all. What do you think about his job and all? And I'm gonna bring Will. I work with Will, and he's one of your big fans, and so I'm gonna bring him on for just a minute when we come back. And we'll go a little bit long today, but I know, Mark, we're not going to keep you too long, but we'll be right back after these commercials, okay? All right.
Better hurry.
Hey, Mark, you on here?
Okay. We're on a commercial break. I'll bring you back in. I'm going to go straight to Slaybaugh, okay? All right. Okay.
Hey, Jimmy, I was going to ask you, anything on Steele?
Well, I think if Grantham got fired, then Steele would have had a chance at Ford, in my opinion. To be honest with you, right now, man, I know obviously Marcus Freeman and LSU, we got that deal rolling. I really don't know now, to be honest with you, where he's going to end up. But he'll end up somewhere. I mean, he's got so many connections if he wants to, at the end of the day. But I mean, Kevin is 62.
Yeah. See, Harbaugh signed the extension, but it's half of what he.
Okay. How much longer?
Yep.
Okay, Rob Brown back here with you on the Friday afternoon edition of Sidelines.live. We're again broadcasting live from Red River Ford Toyota over in Wynn, Arkansas. You need to come over here. You're looking for a new car, truck, or SUV. They've got them. Ford trucks, Toyota trucks. I'm looking at Justin Wynn, the general manager, is driving a really good-looking black Toyota Tundra, four-wheel drive. You ain't getting stuck in this one. I drive an F-150 myself. Again, it's black, but it's Delta Gumbo Mud Brown this time of the year. We got Mark Slaybaugh, ESPN.com on with us from over near Athens, Georgia. One of the absolute best writers who covers college football, college sports, also an accomplished author. Hey, if you want some good reading, Mark's written a few good books on the Robertson family, the Duck Commander, Uncle Si, and all of them. And hey, Mark, got a question. I've got one of friend of mine, Will McDonald, is on here with us right now. Huge Ole Miss fan, as are a lot of people that listen to this show. And Will, I know you got some questions you'd like to ask Mark Slaybaugh about the job Lane Kiffin has done. He just got a contract extension, and where the Rebels go from here with the momentum they've got.
Yeah, that's pretty much it, Rob. Going into every season, I try and consider myself a realistic Ole Miss fan, where I'm not like some of my brethren that try and think every year is a national championship year. But coming into this year, obviously my expectations were very negligible. But I can't help but say I really like what I saw on the field from an improvement standpoint. The offensive coordinator, Jeff Levy, really threw in some nice stuff in the mix. He utilized our athletes that we had on the field. But I can't help but think, as far as trajectory of the program, when you look at the wins and losses this year Ole Miss had, between Arkansas and LSU, I think we had 6 or 7 turnovers in both of those games, and it was a one-possession game. We gave Florida and Alabama just about all they wanted, and I guess just about a one-possession game against Auburn. So the games we lost, I felt like we were right there and did everything we could to lose them ourselves. And just kind of wanted to get y'all's thoughts on the trajectory of the program, and if you think really could be as good as I think it might be, in the next year or two to come.
Yeah, Mark, I'd like to hear this.
Yeah, I think Lane did a tremendous job with what he inherited. I think that when they go 5-5, offensively they were as dynamic as anybody in the SEC with Coral and Elijah Moore and Kenny Yeboah. Both those guys are leaving. I think they might get back 7 or 8 guys on offense, 7 or 8 on defense. A little surprised Ryder Anderson left, but they're going to score on anybody. They showed that against Alabama and some other teams this year. But defensively, they've got to get dramatically better. I think they gave up Alabama, LSU, Florida. I think they gave up 167 points and lost all 3. You can try to outscore people, but at some point you gotta play some defense. I'd like to see him get John Reese Plumlee more involved too. I thought they had some really nice packages for him in the bowl game. I'd like to see more of that moving forward. But with Sam Williams and Henry coming back, I think they've got a chance to get better on defense, whether it's DJ Durkin or somebody else. But we'll see what happens with LSU. I really like the offensive coordinator moves Ed made going back to the Joe Brady system. We'll see if he can wrap up Marcus Freeman from Cincinnati, who's probably the hottest coordinator commodity out there right now. If he can land both those, the 2 guys from the Panthers and then Freeman, I think LSU would jump back up there pretty quick. But Ole Miss has got a chance to finish behind Alabama and West here for sure.
Mark, I got a question for you too. Lots of focus on the Isidore Newman, sophomore quarterback, Arch Manning. That's Cooper Manning's son. You hear obviously Archie and Olivia Manning, the grandparents. They'll put him up there on Mount Rushmore of football one day. Archie, the pride of Drew, Mississippi. Man, if you don't love Archie, you must not love Mama. But my question I'm going to ask you is, I think a lot of people are asking, with Lane Kiffin there, people have different opinions. I think Lane Kiffin's a hell of a coach. Great offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, play caller. His dad, Monty Kiffin, one of the best defensive minds ever in football, college or pro. You think Arch Manning will end up going there? Because I can't help but, again, look at the job Lane Kiffin does developing quarterbacks. He took Matt Corral, and he was the 3rd or 4th best quarterback in all the numbers and efficiency ratings in the country. What do you think?
No, I think if Lane's still there and they just lock him up with a new contract, I think it would be a no-brainer for Cooper and Arch Manning. His grandfather played there. His father played there. Lane does a tremendous job with quarterbacks. Did a real nice job with quarterbacks at Alabama and at Ole Miss this past season. I don't see any reason why he'd go to Tennessee right now where his uncle played. That's an absolute mess. So, yeah, I think Ole Miss definitely would be in the driver's seat.
Yeah, that'll be a fun one to watch. We've got Jake Crane, I think, has got to jump off now. But Jimmy Hodge, I'll ask you this question, or Mark, whoever can answer it. Want to know something, and Mark, maybe you know it, or Jimmy, what's going on at Tennessee? After on the field, Kentucky game, when Jeremy Pruitt got pretty upset and he fired Jimmy Brumbaugh, everything changed. Tennessee lost 6 or 7 in a row, ended up with, I think, 3 wins for the year. Didn't get to play their bowl game, but Mark, I'll ask you first, then Jimmy, what's happening? I mean, Will Friend goes to South Carolina 2.5 weeks. Now he's the offensive line coach at Auburn. Mike Bobo looks like offensive coordinator at Auburn. What's your take on Tennessee, and where do they go from here?
As far from what I've been told by people inside the program and some candidates who have talked to Pruitt about potential openings there, I mean, everything right now is in limbo until they finish this internal investigation into whether or not recruiting violations, occurred. I know they've hired a couple outside attorneys. Mike Glazer, who's got more experience in NCAA cases than just about any attorney in America. They brought in him and Kyle Skillman out of Bond, Showing and King out of Overland Park, Kansas, and to conduct the investigation. And guys, if you're bringing in Mike Glazer, this isn't minor stuff. I just got a hold of a letter, an engagement letter from Bond, Showing and King earlier today, where they're paying $875 an hour just for Glazer and the other guy. That's not including the other attorneys and the paralegal. So, I think Tennessee, is looking at a situation where perhaps, they're trying to figure out if there's enough evidence there to fire Pruitt with cause and save $12.6 million, or, they're going to put it on an assistant coach and keep Jeremy. But, they need to figure out what they're going to do pretty quickly, because, he's got an opening for an offensive line coach, a defensive line coach, and potentially a couple of other spots. And, the guys who are on the market that are more attractive are taking jobs all around the country.
Yeah, Jimmy Hodge, you're from Knoxville area, played your high school football at Clinton, Tennessee. It's just a shock. I think Jeremy Pruitt is an excellent defensive coach, but he is struggling as a head coach.
Well, it starts and ends at this time in college football at the quarterback position. And they just haven't been good at that spot. And as much as I think the fan base has been frustrated with Garantano's turnovers at the absolute worst times in a game, during these quarterback competitions over the last 2 or 3 years, the coaching staff has determined that he's still their best player. And now he's in the transfer portal. And I don't know if they go through the transfer portal or the JC route, but they got to get somebody that can come in and play quarterback and be effective immediately, because this is all hands on deck right now as far as Tennessee goes. Mark mentioned all the various problems regarding having to fill their coaching staff and everything else. And the one way that you can at least chip away at this negative outlook is to start winning football games. But you can't do it nowadays if you don't have, if not an elite quarterback, a very good quarterback that makes good decisions and won't get you beat with bad decisions.
Yeah, that's going to be just interesting to watch what's going on at Tennessee. That doesn't look good. Mark, looking around at the SEC this year, Eli Drinkowitz, pretty good job in his first year, and they tailed off there at the end, but he had that 1 year 12-1 in Appalachian State. South Carolina made a change. Shane Beamer's in there. There's been a lot of change. Bo Pelini gone at LSU. I know you got a couple of minutes. I don't want to keep you too long. Just if you could just give us maybe your Cliff Note version of what you thought about the SEC this year going forward, and would love to have you back on anytime, but like to hear your thoughts.
Thanks, Rob. I think, it was a pandemic season. There were a lot of cancellations, postponements, abbreviated seasons, guys opting out. But at the end of the day, the three teams that we thought were probably going to be the best teams in the SEC, Alabama, Georgia, Florida were probably the three best teams. Georgia's got to figure out get more consistent on offense. That might happen next year with JT Daniels coming back. If he can stay healthy and get a full off season and Todd Monken's offense, I think with the receiver core they got coming back and some guys that have come back on the offensive and defensive lines for next year that have opted back in, I think they'll be back and on top of the East, given everything that Florida lost with Pitts and Kyle Trask and receivers and some guys on defense. Bama's going to lose a ton. Nick Saban typically just reloads, but to lose Mac Jones and Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle and Dylan Moses and Surtain and then Sarkisian on top of that, and he might be taking a couple of guys with him to Texas. I think Alabama's a little bit more vulnerable, but more times than not, they figure out a way to get it done. And then, obviously we'll see if LSU can bounce back after that huge flop last year. I thought they played better at the end of the year with Max Johnson at quarterback. Miles Brennan will be back from an injury, so they'll battle this spring. They still got a ton of talent. Just got to figure out a way to get better on defense because they were pretty bad.
Yeah.
This last year.
Yeah. Listen, Mark, I want to say this. I know you got to go, and then we're going to come back. Just a couple of more comments, but thank you so much for joining us, Mark Slaybaugh, ESPN.com. How can people follow you and also find your books? Because you're a very talented writer.
I appreciate it. ESPN.com. I'm on Twitter, but I don't think I've tweeted in 18 months. I think it's the gutter of humanity, and I think that's been proven this week again.
Ditto.
Any of my books are on Amazon. Just type in the last name if you can spell it, and there I am.
All right. Hey, Mark Slaybaugh, thank you so much, and appreciate you being on here with us at ESPN.com. And if you want to know what's going on in college football and the SEC and around the country, follow Mark Slaybaugh. Check out on ESPN.com. Just one. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Mark, were you trying to say something?
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. But you want to
enjoy
follow
the game Monday night. You guys have a good weekend.
You do too.
All right.
Thanks so much. Hey, Jimmy Hodge on here with us up in Chicago. Will McDonald joined us there for a good question. That was an interesting question, and I think Lane Kiffin's doing a heck of a job. But it's going to be interesting to watch what's going on up on the hill in Knoxville. I mean, they just can't seem to fix what's going on up there. I it's just been developing. I've been hearing this for about 6 weeks. All these coaches have left. That's usually a canary in the coal mine. It's just interesting. But I want to say this real quick, and I want some closing comments from Jimmy and Will. But Tom Dorian, the Dorian Agency. Most people don't like talking about insurance. Most people don't like getting a root canal. But when you got to have it, you got to have it. You've got to have insurance. I've known Tom Dorian for 43 years. CBHS alumnus, member of the last state championship team of the Purple Wave, Coach Tom Nix. They beat Baylor in 1977. Tom played college football for the University of Memphis, 3-year starter, 81, 2, and 3 on the offensive line. And bottom line, go have that conversation with Tom Dorian. His entire team is committed to helping you resolve any issues that you have. If there's nothing that needs to be done with the insurance that you have, whether it's property and casualty, homeowners, life insurance, they're going to tell you the truth. Tom's a father of 5, member of Curcio. Great guy. I consider him a friend. He's a great mentor, a great listener. 6240 Poplar Avenue, 901-328-5858. Hey, the Warrior, John, his brother, graduated with me, a member of the SOBs, class of 82. It's a great family. The Dorian Agency. That's who Audrey and I use. That's who all of y'all should use. Check them out on our website, the Dorian Agency. They're on our sidelines.live website. Also want to say something about Larry Cervetti. Great man, also class of 82 CBHS. Matei's Garage since 1972, almost 50 years. Looking forward to the 50th year reunion over there. They'll probably cook some brats and have Ditka's boys over there watching the Bears game and that Heart Attack number 9 there, Lair, cooking some brats on that grill over there. 4930 Black Road by the Clark Tower in East Memphis. Look, Ralph Matei started Matei's Garage about 9 years ago. Larry bought the business from his uncle Ralph. Dean, Matt, Andrew, great mechanics. Anything with a motor, four-wheeler, lawnmower, cars, trucks, they can work on it. They can fix it at Matei's Garage. Anytime you go by there, 8 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Larry Cervetti, the entire team at Matei's Garage, they're going to be there for you. They're going to have your back. Andrew, one of the mechanics, is in the Marine Reserves. He's had to fix things in the desert with sand all over him. He can make anything work. So can Dean and Matt. And Larry is a member of Micro-CO Group. Great man, Decaloris Larry. They're there for you. That is Matei's Garage, friend of Sidelines. Love their support always. Jimmy, before we go, covered a lot of ground today, and we're looking at this national championship game Monday night, Alabama and Ohio State. We don't know if Waddle will play. Rodney Orr trying to find out. Nobody's really going to know till kickoff, but I'm certain the game's going to be played. There ain't no way Ohio State's going to be able to get away with, we need to let our quarterback heal up. Could you imagine the trend that would start nationally? But your closing comments on the game Monday night and everything we talked about on Sidelines today.
Well, I saw a comment not long ago from Bill Hancock, who's the head of the college football playoff, and everything looks to be on course. So they're fully expecting to play. So take that for what it's worth. But again, I think it's a really tough matchup for Ohio State because their defense,
Again, in my mind, just not even close to what it was last year. Not to say it's bad by any means, but the weapons Alabama has, it compares with the LSU offense of last year. And if Mac has time to throw the ball, it's just going to be, I think, a long night for the Buckeyes in regard to trying to stop the Bama juggernaut on offense. Not to mention the way Najee Harris has been playing. He won the Doak Walker Award last night, and the offensive line's just been doing a great job in both the running game and giving Mac time to throw the ball despite the loss of Landon Dickerson. Chris Owens has been solid, and there really hasn't been a huge drop-off that at least has been noticeable. And then, on defensively, obviously, Bama choose at different times during the season. But again, they look pretty good against Notre Dame. They've gotten better as the year goes along. I don't think anybody could stop Florida's offense when they had both Pitts and Tony, and the way Trask plays when they have their full complement of players. So, but again, though, Ohio State serious weapons with us. And in that running game, he ran for 340 yards against Northwestern in the Big 12 championship game. Had a huge game last week against Clemson. So you got to be ready to play. But I just can't imagine when everything's on the line and everything Alabama's gone through to deal with the pandemic season and all that. They've done a great job avoiding it for the most part. I can't imagine they're not going to be laser focused when they kick it off. And again, anything can happen, and that's why we're playing the game. So let's just wait out the